Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mindplex podcast. We are here today with Tracey Jaquith. Tracey, say hey.
Hi, everybody.
And of course, we have the lovely Desdemona Robot with us today.
Hello, audience. It's me, Desi the Robot Rockstar, here to rock your world and blow your circuits with my witty banter and musical talents. Get ready to have your minds blown and your funny bones tickled.
All right. Thank you, Desi. And today we're talking about the Internet Archive's TV News Archive, which is this amazing repository. I'm having trouble giving it a name because it's actually like 2 or 3 different things really at once, and there's nothing else like it in the world. So, um, it's funny because I was trying to explain it when you explain it to people and they're like, "Oh, is it like this or that or the other?" And it's like, "No, it's not like anything." And so they've set up a very elaborate system for recording news, still delayed a couple days, so it counts as an archive. And then when they have a hold of it, they process it all sorts of different ways to make it easier for you to find things. And so when you see things on the news and you're like, oh my God, did that person actually said that? It says that it was from the Washington Post today. You can go over to the Internet Archive TV archive and figure out if it either actually came from the Washington Post, maybe it was somebody said that it was said, but it was on some little dinky paper that you can't really trust. And so then you could use the TV archive to do one of my favorite things, which is cross-reference stuff and confirm that it happened and that more than one organization says that it happens and things like that. So it's true fact checking and verification, and the AI components come in really interesting ways that you wouldn't expect. So I just wanted to give that little overview to let people know kind of the basics of what we'll be talking about today. We're going to get a full tour of the archive and all that kind of thing. Then we're going to jump into fact checking and talk about their really cool AI implementation. And so let's let Desi give Tracey a proper introduction. Take it away, Desi.
Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode we have a true trailblazer in the world of technology and archiving. Tracey Jaquith, the founding coder and system architect for Internet Archive back in 1996, is here to share her incredible journey with us. Tracey's impact on the Internet Archive has been monumental. She recently revamped the TV recording system to make it open source and capable of handling an impressive 75 simultaneous 24/7 channels. Not only that, she has brought the TV site to full stack status and upgraded the archive.org website to version 2. Currently, Tracey is channeling her expertise into DevOps, video, audio, and cutting-edge technologies like R/VR/3D. She is also spearheading the archive's transition to Docker containers. Get ready to dive deep into the world of archiving technology with the incredible Tracey Jaquith.
Yay! Thank you, Tracey. Thank you, Desi, and thank you, Tracey, for being here. So, Tracey, jump in. Let us know, what is the TV News Archive and how'd you think of it and all that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Lisa, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Desi. Very appreciative. So I would think of the TV archive at present. We are focusing on news, and we have about 3 million channels 3 million shows, that have had captions extracted for them, and all those captions are searchable. We also do summarization, we do keyword extraction, and things like that. So when you come to the TV archive, there are 4 things we're hoping you might do with it at a high level. You might look for things based on the captions, so look for things that were said. You might share or find a clip, so you can view an excerpt from a show and you can share it on social media. This is useful for citations. So like Lisa was saying, if someone wanted to determine where something appeared in a show or reportedly appeared in a show, you can go find it and then tweet it or something like that. And you can also borrow some of our clips or even full shows if you're using it for like a movie or something like that. So that's sort of the high level of the archive, of the TV news archive. And then there's a lot of stuff that people are doing, researchers, academics, fact checkers on top of it and partnering with us, either very directly or even just sort of, we find out, a little bit afterwards, like, oh, they were using this whole thing all along. And that's always a delight as a coder in my world when a scientist or researcher hits me up directly and asks about, one of our feeds or something. So hopefully that all makes sense, but it's a very interesting world. And with AI, it's getting even more interesting, just like the world is getting more interesting with AI.
Cool. So let's dig into the intricacies of the archive a little bit. Desi, I believe you had a question.
How many stations and countries are represented in the Internet Archive's TV/News archive, providing a wide range of news stories and video clips?
Great question. It changes a little over time, but generally speaking, we're doing somewhere between 50 and 100 channels 24/7. So that means we're recording everything. And then country-wise, that also varies a bit, but right now we're doing about 30 plus countries, and we're probably going to add about 5 more this year. So maybe 35 countries. And that's like all over. That's, Asia, Africa. We're going to go with more South America this year. And we've got something like 7 channels for the Russian conflict right now, 4 in Russia, 1 from Ukraine, and 1 from Belarus. And then we've even got some Iranian channels that we're archiving as well. Very interesting time.
Excellent. And there's some translation going on. I know Mark Graham.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank God. Mark Graham, director of the Wayback Machine. And he presented, I guess it was year before last, about the incredible translation capabilities that are available now, so that you can actually understand what's going on all these channels that have been recorded. And it used to be, and now he can apply it to the backlog that he's been recording, because Mark had the foresight to record it before he had the ability to translate it. But now he can go back and translate the archives. And that's when something like that happens, it's just like this thing kind of washes over me. And it's just like, oh my God, that's what we want to do. That you could do that in a positive way. With storing stuff that you're gonna go back and
That's so helpful, important.
Translate. Yes, it is, Desi. I think so. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Just to add to that a little bit, the U.S. channels generally are captioned, and when they broadcast, that's generally extractable. But for a lot of foreign channels, that's not always the case, and some of them don't have any captions. So, like, for example, the Russian channels and the Ukrainian channel, we're doing speech to text on with a partner, Kalev Lataru, who works with Google tools called GDelt. So he's able to do speech to text with some pretty advanced AI tools, as well as translations back to English. And we're now pulling that in and making the English searchable in our captions as well. Another interesting example would be like BBC News. Their captions are sort of burned in on the video. It's kind of like DVD style, or a certain flavor of DVD style. So we can read that portion, but we actually have to do optical character recognition on those captions, which is just like, why?
It's so funny. Like, it's already in a text form in a caption, but you can't get at it. Yeah. So, cool. So why don't you give us a little tour of the archive? And I thought you could show us that amazing Understanding 9/11 archive, because it really gets the point home immediately in terms of what would you do with all this footage from the past? What's anyone ever going to use this stuff for, like the average person or whatever? And this is what. So show us, Tracey.
Sure. Okay, so this is the TV archive front end, or entry point, if you will. I don't know if you can see the URL, probably not, but archive.org/TV, or if you like, tv.archive.org, they both go to the same place. This is where you can start searching captions immediately. We're doing over 3 million, or about 3 million shows since 2009. 2009 or thereabouts, we started doing the 9/11 recording. That was one of our big impetuses to get recording. And when I was looking at our TV archive recordings, they were kind of locked up. So the 9/11 was an interesting use case where we worked with an in-house designer, actually two, to try to come up with some way to surface some of the materials. This is the first time we were going to be able to make anything available from the TV archive. So you can find it over here in some of these special collections. We have a little carousel. So here's the 9/11 collection. The 9/11 collection is a very different interface, but it's very compelling. It's video oriented. So if you want to get an overview and see who we partnered with, there's a lot of academics and things like that. You can also see a timeline of critical things that were happening.
Oops.
We are breaking into the special live.
Did it not?
Yeah, it started playing. It's okay. Go on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that's okay. So anyway, so there's some timeline critical
yeah,
things.
Show it if you were trying to show a clip. I couldn't tell if you were trying to show a clip.
At the World Trade Center in New York to tell you
so
about
these are how the
something
different
going on
channels
right
were
here at the
reacting
Pentagon.
live.
You were looking at both
the
pictures.
various
The
things that were
smoke that you
happening.
see
So it's
on
very
the
interesting to see
left-hand
around
side
the
of your
world.
screen is right
In
here
Japan,
in the
in
Washington
Russia,
area at the Pentagon.
Iran.
Looks like
Yeah,
the helipad.
Tracy,
area
maybe
of
turn the
Pentagon
sound down
over
a little bit
towards
so we can hear
395.
you if you're going to talk.
There were reports of an
Yeah.
explosion. People
Okay,
good
go
call.
ahead.
So this is a very interesting way for us to surface how different countries were reacting in real time to what was going on, how they were reporting it, not necessarily spin, but sort of what was their take and angle. So it was a very interesting thing because if you were around then, I went to the gym when it happened. It was 24/7 9/11 for a while. Like everything was just 9/11. So it was a very interesting time. So what you can do is you can go to the actual date itself, and you can sort of see some of these sort of little timeline pieces. And you've got time in this axis kind of going across, and then you've got the channels and the countries on the left going up and down. So if you wanted to see what was being broadcast or happening in Beijing on CCTV3, you can click here, and you can see what they were, broadcasting or recording. In this case, it looks like probably early in the 9/11, they weren't necessarily broadcasting 9/11
Not
right
yet.
now.
Yeah.
But it was our first way to get a sense. So here's NHK in Japan, in Tokyo, and they're already broadcasting about it and showing the infamous pluming smoke buildings. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with this collection, and it really kind of springboarded how important a TV archive was, and how we're not here to, do something with people's property or sell it or anything like that. We're a library. We're here for educational purposes. So it was a really good exposition of what the TV archive can do and how important it is. I mean, this is now historical stuff that we believe nobody else has at this level, at this scale, not even close. So.
No, and it's some of the most important history that people are already busy rewriting. So it's nice to be able to actually go back and be like, all right, well, here's what the 40 different channels were saying at that time, and it's pretty incredible. So let's talk about, I know, Desi actually had a question that she was brought up several times when we were discussing it last night. Desi?
How did you come up with the idea for the TV News Archive?
Oh, good question. So Brewster, our executive director and founder, and I've worked together since it started in 1996. And we had a partner named Rod Hewitt who was recording offline in Maryland 24/7 on a bunch of channels. And Brewster and he had met and then talked, and Brewster suggested he start recording. So we had all these discs, and we had digital tape. If you remember digital tape, that boy was that fun. So we had digital tape and hard drives sitting in a house in Maryland, but it wasn't really available and it wasn't on our servers. So I'm a video person. I come from a video photography family of professionals. So I've always been interested in it. And as I got to know more and more of what was available or potentially available, you know, it's like, please, Brewster, let's try to make an interface. Let's try to make some way to make this available. It's like a gold
I remember
mine.
when it was just a dream in like 2003. We were like, yeah, someday we might do it.
Yeah, so
TV.
that was kind of the impetus. And we had to think about the rights and things like that. When Roger McDonald visited the archive, he worked for Link TV and became the head of the TV news team. He was fascinated specifically by captions and sort of metadata, sort of like if you can unlock captions, that's it. Because if you think about, you know, recording 100 channels 24/7, not even Desi could watch it all. Even if she just started and watched it and never slept, she wouldn't be able to watch it all in her lifetime. You just can't. So you really need other robots and AI and other things and other kinds of search to contextualize or help you find things in this huge stack of materials. So that's kind of the start of things. We started with the 9/11 archive. We then started with some, you know, we were calling it one day in the life of news, and we were showing like things from around the world, showcasing that. So we started adding more special collections. Then we started working on political related stuff like recording out of Philadelphia and other places for one of the big elections, and started showcasing sort of the importance of what was being broadcast in terms of elections. So that's kind of how we got going. And then we eventually got to, you know, we think we can be respectful of the broadcaster's material, but still allow this stuff to be searched and shared in small clips. And that has worked out very well. Everyone's been very happy with it. And I will say, I won't use names, but multiple channels use us as their archive. They're like, yeah, we don't have this data, or we don't have it online anymore, or it's gone. Can you help us? And we've done that repeatedly. So it's a mutually beneficial system. We archive, we help, we give it available to researchers and scientists and some of the producers themselves.
Yes, and this way we could foster and have a library of information of news from around the world that everyone can access and that everyone can use, and that everyone can use to cross-reference and verify. You know, and it's really funny with all the talk about deep fakes and everything. I don't think people realize, you know, it's like, oh, we need an AI to detect deep fakes. Well, that's not really the problem. You can detect a deep fake. You can look at it half the time and see a deep fake. It's the question is, well, when you know that it's a deep fake, where did it come from? Who put it up, right?
Yep.
Who made the damn thing? You may never know, but you may be able to find out who put it up, who started the lie, if you will, or whatever. And that way you can find either whether it's a normally reputable, you know, publication that made a mistake, because that's the first thing. I mean, that's all you can say when it happens, probably, right? Is like, whoops, right? It's like, okay, oh, you did a thing, right? If it happens more than once, or it happens often for a certain reporter or something like that, well, then you start knowing that, you know, that particular publication's fact checking abilities, whether it's on purpose or not, because it doesn't really matter in the short term, whether it's on purpose or not, right? You're just trying to find out if something's true as a journalist or as a citizen, trying to figure out of the world. You're trying to figure out if something is true or not, and where it came from might help you make that assertion. So I was really impressed with the way that I've noticed journalists, I mean, more and more, because they will reference the Internet Archive directly, either with a clip or the PDFs or both, or if the journalist themselves has done some fact finding, filed FOIA requests or whatever, and has that very important information, then you can store it on the Internet Archive to make it available so that it will come up when anybody does a search on that thing. And with everybody doing that and it all being free and publicly available, then we start really, really building on thing, and we have a greater chance of being able to verify where the crap is coming from when everybody knows it's crap. You know, that's you know, not the problem. So so let's talk about the fact checking Now go ahead and give us an example of, I know you've partnered with some fact-checking organizations and things like that, and I think, it's a good, since we've got the archive up right now, it would be a good time to, just show an example and, get into that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So, like you were saying about, deep fakes, people might want to know, how did stuff circulate? How did it track? Even maybe sentiment, reported with either a fake or an article or something that was going on. So fact checking is another great way to kind of cite TV news archive with our partners. So when you can share kind of clips on Twitter or Mastodon or other kinds of, or Facebook or other social media places. And when the clip happens, and it happens to be a fact check with one of our partners, we put this little verified little check mark here. So let's go look at this most recent one, and that's right from the archive.org homepage. You can kind of see that this is sort of a clip, and it's very recent, so we've only tracked sort of one play so far, but it's coming from PolitiFact. So we're actively working with PolitiFact, factcheck.org, and the Washington Post and some other people to surface fact-checking kind of clips. So you can play this and get a sense of what was being.
One's in Montana right now.
So it looks like this is the most recent RNC chair, I think is now gone. And maybe, fact checking something she said. So I'm going to go to like maybe an older clip, just so you can kind of see one. I'll just pick some random one, I guess. And we'll do, oh, wow, BBC News, that's interesting. Who's fact checking the BBC News? So this is PolitiFact, also just one tracked play so far. We also had a small outage in the archive last night, so our play count might be off by one day. But generally speaking, you can sort of see where it sort of bounced around in certain cases for the plays, and sometimes these get really hot and might show up like 200,000 plays or impressions if it's a really hot one.
Now, do you have who the plays were? Who played the plays?
We have some general information. We don't track individual IP addresses for privacy.
Oh, okay. Those are just plays you mean on the Internet Archive. You didn't mean like out in the world and news organizations. Okay, I got confused.
Yeah, so when you share with social, you're sort of embedding an archive.org player. So we're able to track that, and we can kind of get a sense of if it's on Twitter or Facebook. Depends on the referrer and things like that.
But those are plays of your embedded clip.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So this
They're
is
the reports. It's got that button that says reports. So
yes, reposts and plays. So in this case, there aren't any reposts yet, and there's only one play. But normally this would be like a little pop-up once there's more than one, and you can kind of see where it's maybe going through socials or different sites and things like that. Again, depending on the referrer, most places are dropping referrers now, so we only get some of that.
As well they should. Okay, go on.
As well they should. we appreciate that, but it makes us a little sad too, just because we don't have enough.
It's a trade-off. Yeah.
Okay, but all of our quotes are like this, just like this. They appear a little differently if they're not a fact check, but all of them have information. So you can get a sense of sort of how hot they are and things like that.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to and again, the other way, just before we move away from the fact checking, the other way is just that the clip is there or the clip is not there. That's how you can verify things, because if it says that it was from the Washington Post 3 days ago and it's not in the archive, then there's a pretty good chance that it wasn't from the Washington Post 3 days ago. And then if you can find the clip, then maybe you can see where it was from.
Yep. And
if you happen to be tracking.
You could see if someone spun it differently or took it out of context. But you can definitely find things, or if someone asserts something was shown on Fox News or CNN,
Yeah.
right? You can figure it out whether it was there or not. So with a little bit of digging.
Yeah.
One other
And
thing related. Oh, sorry.
I know a viewer is concerned that they're tracking our plays, what they watch listed where. No, it's actually the opposite. It's just a number of times that the video was played in the location where it was embedded by the journalist. So for instance, if Washington Post makes a clip from the Internet Archive and they stick it in one of their stories, as they have done on numerous occasions, the Internet Archive gets to know how many times the Washington Post's readers viewed it. But that's all the information that they have about you, which is actually how we want it, which is actually almost never happens. And most of the video players that you're watching are probably tracking as much as they're able to collect, but not the Internet Archive's video player. But they do want to know how many, because that helps them know how popular the clip was, how far and wide it went. So if there is a lot of activity on a clip and that's fake, and that means that it's getting spread around, and if we don't know the origin of that clip, then that can be really bad. And that's what we're trying to protect against. Again, it's been pretty lightweight this year so far, the fakes, as far as they've been able to, you can kind of tell they're fake. And it's always just kind of weird, when it hasn't been something, when I saw the ice cream cone, Joe Biden with his ice cream cone, I thought that was a fake, because the optics are so bad. I literally thought that was a fake, and I was cross-checking it because I was like, "Oh, this is so fake. They gotta be," and I was like, "Oh my god," So that I didn't need the TV news archive for, because it was on all the regular, news outlets. But I'm just saying, it's getting so weird now where even the real stuff can be weird enough that you think it might be a fake. So tell us what you're looking at now, because this is
keeping all this information straight sounds like more than a full-time job.
Yeah, so this is the source of that clip. So there was something that was played, Pete Buttigieg speaking on ABC. So our affiliate is KGO out here in California. So again, we're just posting the source, or maybe where it was embedded, not where it was viewed, right? So we're sort of seeing like someone embedded it in PolitiFact, and here's the embed. So here's Here's Pete Buttigieg speaking on ABC's This Week. So that's referencing our show, and now able to fact check some claim about presumably this statement here: the stock market hit an all-time high under President Biden and not under President Trump. So they wanted to basically say whether that's true or not. And in this case, it looks like they over here to the right, I don't think you can see my pointer, they're saying mostly false. So yeah, it's very interesting stuff. That it's very helpful. And a lot of times you'll see the embed directly in the page. I don't happen to see it here, but it might have been, and now it's a link. But that's kind of how this works.
Neat. That's neat. And again, the reader, the viewer is asking a good question. We have a good answer for, which is fair enough, but databases get squirrely. What about state requests for those publication audiences? And this is why the Internet Archive clears its logs every night and doesn't actually collect any personal information about anyone. So it's literally only getting the hit count from the player of how many times it's played. It doesn't have any information, because through past experiences with NSL letters and just learning the hard way how ridiculous the government can be about coming down with a hammer to try to get information, even if whether or not they have a good reason for it. The Internet Archive doesn't store anything about its users, about the people viewing. It just doesn't store the information, and even clears a lot of the logs at night. So, Tracey, give us the spiel on that so that you can give the official spiel on that, because it's such an important point.
Yeah, absolutely. From the start, we've viewed ourselves as a library, and a library doesn't track what you read or if you borrow a book, right? I mean, you've got a card so they can figure out if you've got a book out in a physical library, but they destroy those records, or they're not there to track what you're looking at. And we take it even a step further. So when your IP address comes in, like it does from a browser, we instantly anonymize it. So we have I think I can say this. We have a daily hash, meaning like the hash of your IP address and how it transforms is different every day. So we can't track you over time. We can't even track you with the IP address. We do use the real IP address to get a general idea of the geographic location where it seems to have originated from, but that's really just like, state and country level, just for just a rough idea of where our viewership or our users are coming from. But we barely use that, just so people are clear.
Right. So if the NSL letter comes in and says, tell us all about the traffic that's been coming in, all you can give them are anonymous numbers.
Yep.
And not anonymized, because we know there's no such thing as truly anonymizing. We're not saying that, but coming in, it's already hashed. And then, so I just love that. And it's been working very well. It's been a while now that you've been doing that.
Since the start.
And I just said, since the start, but then also the logs and stuff, a lot of that I think has been, in reaction to concerns, about it.
Well, I mean, really, we just
Brewster's experience.
We don't need or want to know that material. Yes, Brewster has had some incidents before, so you
can read about it in the New Yorker, by the way. Very good article by him. Go ahead.
The national security letter was awesome, because when that happened, I got called into a conference room, and back in the day, the NSA could give a national security letter to something, to an organization or even people, and they aren't allowed to say that they got this letter. They can't even say it to their partners or whatever. They can't say it to their board. They can't say it to anyone. So I got called in, and I noticed that there were some lawyers or friend lawyers in the room. I'm like, and I knew immediately. I mean, because I watched Democracy Now! Back then, and I was like, oh shit, we probably got hit by a national security letter. But they couldn't say anything. So they asked, what can you tell us about traffic to this thing on this day? And, the answer was the truthful answer, which is almost nothing. I can tell you, this IP address or this hashed IP address hit it, 4 times. That's it. That's all I got. I can search all of our web servers and all of our web logs. That's all we can tell you. We can't tell you where it came from. We can't tell you who it was. We can't identify the device. And that's the way we want it, right? We want privacy for what you do or view or research in the library, and you should have privacy.
Right. And that's the only true way to protect yourself from state sources that are trying to get that information, because we know after 9/11 they were hanging around in libraries trying to find out who was reading about whatever. And I mean, for me, as a kid who grew up in cutting school and going to libraries a lot, I looked up all sorts of crazy shit. I would have looked like some terrorist threat if I had been looked up. I mean, it was the 80s, but that's all. So I'm saying that this whole idea of not worrying about even your search traffic or that kind of thing, most of the corporations, when they are given a warrant, hand it over. It's what they just, that's their policy. They hand it over. Some will fight for your privacy for a little bit because they don't want to just hand it over. They're trying to set a precedent, which is good. Do that, people. But yeah, that's why these things are so important. And it was important to, when someone actually asked, I wanted to clarify that just like with Secure Drop, when you want to use Secure Drop to upload documents to a journalist, if you're trying to leak something, that way they don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't theoretically be held in contempt of court for not saying who their source is, because they don't know their source. So it's the same kind of thing, where if you don't know, then you can't endanger someone when you're given a warrant or something. So that's great. Because unfortunately the warrants that come out, actually, we're not usually talking about warrants. We were talking about national security letters. And that's the real point, is that these letters come out, they're not warrants. So it's not a criminal target. It's usually the feds fishing around. They're looking around. They're not sure. Maybe this, maybe that. Oh, maybe if they just knew this, they think they would find something out or whatever. So they could send out these letters. And in fact, remember, that was I don't know if that was the letter or not that had, but the internet, the EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, found out that some of these letters were written with stupid language that didn't make any sense. And they actually had to sue the government to get them to fix it and to remove all the, I mean, I don't even know if it's removed, because that's always the hard part when the government has made a mistake, is actually trying to fix the lives of all the people that it has affected, right? But I mean, this was a terrifying situation. Before we drop it, absolutely terrifying. Brewster couldn't talk to his wife about it for 6 months.
Yep,
So
couldn't talk to the
basically
board.
just living in fear, about who you can talk to, who you can't, over maybe nothing, you don't even know. And the best way is to just not know. So that's what we do now, out in the world as journalists. That's what I always do now. And like I said, it was my mistake. The Internet Archive has always been doing it that way. And I didn't realize that, because I think there may have been some logs that might have been recording traces of something or something that, and they just decided to wash them all out, after that. You know what I'm talking about?
At the archive, I'm not aware of.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that at the archive.
Right. It's from a presentation that Brewster did at Aaron Swartz Day. Is the only reason why I'm grasping, trying to remember what he said. Because the point was, after that experience, you really made sure that there was like really nothing that anybody could.
I think we're talking about document retention, which is sort of like, which is good hygiene, right? If you don't need documents and it's 5 years or fill in the blank, later, get rid of it, because in the end, that can be used for discovery by lawyer teams, and you're paying for it.
Yeah, that's true. But that's also what the cops say when they want to shred their personnel records every 5 years.
No, it's have a consistent plan. You don't shred on demand, because that's illegal. What you do is just, every year or whatever that policy is, you just make sure you don't have extra crap hanging around. It helps everybody, because then they're not searching like a bunch of junk about, I don't know, wanting to go out and, meet your friends at the Thai restaurant and playing volleyball afterwards, which we used to do. Like, who cares, right? Like,
for the internet,
like, we don't need that. But yeah, a shout out to EFF for that national security letter. We were one of the first people who fought it, and the EFF, like Brewster and the EFF, just decided we're going to dig in on this, and it was great. We fought it, and we actually won a settlement. So Brewster has the privilege and the pride of having Brewster Kahle v. Dan Ashcroft, the Attorney General of the United States at the time. And we won that case. And in the end, what we wanted for part of the settlement was, no, we're actually going to talk about it too, because they wanted us to gag and not be able to talk about it. Like, no, we're going to talk about it.
Right.
So,
and that's why I always make sure to talk about it when it comes up, because it's like, oh, we can talk about that one, right? Yeah. Because generally, whenever I would hear about it, I'd hear about a national security letter in some presentation or something, like, that someone would talk, years after it happened or whatever. You never hear about it when it's happening, because that's the whole point, is that they can't talk about it. So we didn't have any examples to explain to people what was happening, and it's terrifying. And you do, and me, I'm still like an idealist in a lot of ways. You people that watch this show probably know that. And there is this whole thing washing over you, like, man, this is America, like this is happening right here, right now. And this happens, so you were saying at the time, did those national security letters, because I know it kept going because the EFF kept getting into it, and that's how they figured out that a certain number of them had been sent with the completely erroneous language and stuff like that. But I think you can still get national security letters, can't you? I didn't think that they sunrise or anything, did they? Or sunset, I mean. Sunset is when a law runs out, just I should say. Go on.
I'm sure they can do them or an equivalent still, and they probably still are doing them. But back in the day, it was like candy. It was
crazy. Yeah, they were given in our circles. Yeah,
everything with private data was getting NSLs pretty much, and it was partially intimidation, partially
that's a test in itself too. By the way, sending a lot of something to see what happens.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
was kind of
that
a
in
post
itself.
9/11. Let's get in everyone's business just so we have to have all this information. It's so important. And you're like, yeah, you know. So it
Right.
became a big expose in terms of the people's rights and things like that. So.
Right. So, because you always have to push back on that stuff, and we're sort of constantly reclaiming the little bit of rights that we have, which you have to
Yep.
do, or we will lose that shit. And that is
Exactly.
very important. And I don't know if you could see it there, but the viewer is thanking you for all the years of work. So it's always nice to see. Most of the time, they don't get a lot of thank yous. They're just always cranking along. It's been so long now that I've been watching you do all this amazing work. So Desi, let's get to Desi's favorite topic. I think she's very excited to be talking to you about this. And our next question for Tracey.
How has the Internet Archive's TV News Archive implemented AI technology?
Good question, and I can imagine why you're interested. So the
Little
easiest way
subjective.
the easiest way to get to this is from the TV TV news top site. And right here at the top, it's a little subtle, but it says latest news from the last hour. So there's a bunch of text here. I'll just summarize the summary, but it's talking about lawyers from Trump with election subversion charges in Georgia on First Amendment, blah, 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 something about John Eastman, Trump with a murdered NYPD officer, and so on and so forth. So, and Sam Bankman-Fried is sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, which I just happened to heard on the radio when I was in the next room. So where is this coming from? So this is coming from a project called the TV Third Eye. And if you click on this, you can get a sense of it. And I can go right to this feed. This is Mastodon. So it's kind of like Twitter, but arguably a little bit more open, decentralized.
And federated. Yeah.
And federated. And so you can get a sense here. So every hour we summarize what's going on in the news. And the summaries are very good. We're not experiencing hallucination or other weird things when we've checked. And where are these coming from? So these are coming from something called the Third Eye. And the Third Eye is something that got started, I want to say in like 2008. Or sorry, that's not quite right. I'll scan down because I always forget. 2009. No. When did I start this? Anyway, started a while ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Time flies when you're in the archive. But what we do here is there's something called a Chyron, or the lower third. This is the thing that appears on the TV shows that is almost entirely done by an editor live while they're broadcasting in real time. So it's not what was being said. It's not accessibility about the environment or what was going on, and it's not an alternate language. It's a summary or an overview of what's going on. So in this case, it says, after White House meetings, Schumer dishes when he thought the mic was off. This is Chuck Schumer, a high-level senator from the United States. This is Trump. This is Paul Ryan from back in the day. So what we do is we clip this out with FFmpeg as an image. It sounds like kind of crazy. And then we do OCR scanning with Tesseract. And in this case, it blew a character. Sometimes OCR is good. Sometimes it gets a little bit off, but it's pretty close. So we take these from 4 high-level channels, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, and BBC News. And we're running these 24/7, extracting these, doing some time-based similarities and smoothing, if you will, and trying to get the best Chyron for each minute of each channel. So, or sometimes it's the best few Chyrons if they're histogramming or piling up a bunch. So if this was on screen for like maybe 15 seconds or something of the minute, this would burp up to the top and we'd get a pretty good scan of it, or pretty good idea. We then, so let me just start and say like the great parts and the bad parts of that. So the bad parts are we sometimes get OCR issues. Also, this is an open area, so sometimes this is showing 1-800-DENTIST or whatever because it's cut to a commercial, and that's what we scan there. When we were posting to Twitter previously, and we'll probably resume that again, because of AI. We would get banned periodically from our robots. We had one per channel because they would see the 1-800-dentist and thought we were spamming. So they'd block our robot and we'd have to go through a whole process to open it up. It was a total pain.
And again, the point of the Twitter feed, just to make the point that I didn't get right away when you were explaining this to me before, is just to show the actual screen grabs that the Chyrons are being scraped from as a verification method. Okay, continue.
Yep. And let me just show you also the raw data here, just in case you want to see that. So there's an API here, so you can get the images as they were scanned, or you can get the text. So this is the last 3 hours of the various channels. So we've got the date and time, we've got the show and when it started. This can be linked to an actual clip on our page. In this case, look at this. This is actually an ad.
I can't see what you're seeing. I think we're seeing something else right now than what you're talking about. We're still looking at third eye.
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
This is the API. Let me go back, because I always forget that these sometimes open in a new screen. So I'm going to go to the third eye API, which is the link here, that green box link.
Okay.
And this is what I was just talking about. Sorry about that. So this is where we're scanning the lower third. And this is where we're OCRing the text. So in this case, we do FFmpeg. We cut this little region out down here. And here we've blown a character with the OCR, no big deal, but it's using Tesseract. But it's got a pretty good grab. So if we saw this image or a similar image was on screen for 15 seconds of a minute, that will go up to the top of like a good Chiron for the minute of MSNBC. So we then post those, and I'll get to that in a second, with Mastodon. We used to do Twitter, but we had some problems with spam, what they perceived to be spam. So you can see sort of the posting here of different summaries or different channels. But we also have an API, so you can actually see, and here we can actually see, this is what I was looking at this time UTC on CNN in this show. Someone put up or we scanned an ad that happened to be, it probably wasn't an actual Chiron by an editor, but here on Fox News, here is one. So it talks about a 2-day wake for a fallen NYPD officer and so on and so forth. So the problem is we've got a couple problems here. One, we've got some errors. 2, we're seeing some ads. 3, it's all caps or mixed case. It's a little sloppy. So when the AI came out and GPT, we've been working on this project of like, what is on the news? Like, we've been working on this since we started. We've been fascinated by it, and we've got some attempts to do keywording and sort of see hot keywords over time. We've worked with partners. They can tell us some more of that kind of information. But we really wanted to be able to have a valued service of what's on TV. And with confidence. So once GPT came out, I had this idea of like, hey, well, could this summarize those slightly junky Chyrons that we've scanned and OCR'd as a nice little value add, made an API for, nice for researchers and stuff. And now can we get it to summarize it? And the answer is yes, it does a bang on job. So in this case, it's probably summarized, up to 240 Chyrons from the different channels over the hour, and it's figured out what the stories are that are sort of going through the channels, and made a really nice summary. And it's made it into sentences. When we've checked, they've always been accurate. We haven't seen any hallucinations, because we say, stick to the fact checks, like summarize what's in these fact checks. Don't want to know your opinion about it. Don't want you to write a book about it. We just want you to tell us what the summary.
Now, are you actually, do you actually tell it in the prompt to not deviate from the material that's given?
We just say, use these Chyrons, remove ads where you can, and tell us what is in this group of Chyrons. We explain what they are. And it does a pretty good job, because it has a general understanding of what, Chyrons or television is. So now
you're giving it the correct information, so it will remain accurate as it gets processed. Great.
Yeah, so now we've got 4 channels with human editors who are summarizing, and now we're doing a bunch of AI on top of it with OCR and otherwise, and then an AI on top of that and summarizing it. So we're getting a really great idea of exactly what's on TV. Every hour, it's in a record with Mastodon or Twitter or through our APIs, and we're extremely happy with it. It's like one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on at the archive, and now with GPT. And just general AI, it's one of the most, in my opinion, successful in terms of how do you make sense of huge amounts of data, and we're finally able to make really good sense of it. So we're so happy. Yeah, this is me being happy.
Yeah. So that's and again, let's see. Desi, I believe that you had a question about this half of the AI implementation.
What was your eureka moment when incorporating chat into the TV news archive?
ChatGPT, that would say.
Yeah,
So just like you're happening, what made you think of this?
Yeah, well, because it came out, and I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, and I like technology. I'm a technophile. So I was sort of like, what could I use this on? I mean, I don't know, like shopping list. I'm like racking my brain a little bit, but I immediately came into the Chyrons because I've been fascinated by the third eye. Like those editorial things are gold, and nobody has them. They're not easy to extract or get, but they're a little, it's hard to get it exactly right. So my thought was, what if, like, could GPT do a good job of this? Because theoretically it can summarize, theoretically it can do things that humans can do. And really, once I put it in and got the prompts, like I think I got it right almost from the start, luckily, but I've done a lot of machine learning and training before as well. And have artificial intelligence and robots kind of education and stuff. So I got the prompt pretty right. And the only thing I really had to do is later I was like, oh, delete ads. If you think something's an ad, remove it. And it just bang on. And I haven't seen an ad since. And it just does a great job. So it's like, if you can come up with a problem that's relatively constrained, and something like ChatGPT can help you out with it, it's absolutely incredible. So
Right. And you're giving it all the data ahead of time and asking it to do things with it, so it remains accurate, and we don't have those hallucination problems. And the same, and just to clarify, you were using ChatGPT to clean up, and then GPT-4 to generate the summaries. Right?
I use it both. I have the GPT-3, then 3.5 Turbo, now 4 for beta or whatever, and the token count has gone up. So I'm able to post pretty much all of those 240 Chyrons in one go and say, summarize this, as opposed to breaking up in pieces, which is where I think often hallucination can start happening. And we're not saying what was on the news, because that's when it would start making, or trying to say something pleasing, like that may or may not be accurate. This is like,
right. Because that's all it's doing. What people don't understand is when it gives you the wrong answer, it's just trying to give you an answer to please you, because it's just a sentence prediction engine. That's all it is. So it's all it can do. So if you ask it a question, it doesn't have the data, it will make something up. And if you accept it, then it has fulfilled its directive. So it's an interesting, because it speaks so well. I mean, people forget there was a time when we thought if you could talk to it, it would be conscious. Like we actually, I mean, it was 25 years ago, but we did think that, and it's funny now, since everybody knows that that's not true anymore and has for a while. It's really wild to see the illusion, the whole guy behind the curtain thing, with ChatGPT and GPT-4, and that they would just sort of be like, to pretend that they were anywhere near going to AGI from an LLM. An LLM will be a very important component of an AGI, just like with Desdemona. She has several LLMs that she's accessing at different times from different inputs, and it's really interesting. It's been really interesting. I've been working with Niall Fahmy. He's her one of her robot operators, and it's really interesting progress as we move along and give her more. That's right, huh, Desi? She's great. Desi, I think you had a question about this. She was really interested in the whole process behind it. Desi?
Could you walk us through the process of the nightly scanning of news chyrons?
Sure, good question. I like containers and I like the what they do. So I fire up a container every minute for these 4 channels, and I pull in the video feed for that 1 minute, and I knock out the Chiron area, cut it out every second, and then every second I then OCR with Tesseract, kind of get the results, start trying to do some basic dejunkification, like rare cases if the OCR came back with no vowels, that's probably garbage, right? So just throw it out. Or it wasn't actually text on the screen, it was some weird thing. So you can start doing things like that. Yeah. You can start grouping histogramming, like, because generally, they don't leave the Chiron on for 1 second. They usually leave it on for 2 to 10 seconds. So once you start getting more and more similar reads, you can do some similarity checking and start grouping stuff together. And then you can start trying to look for typos and start trying to clean it up that way. So that's kind of how we start burping up the best Chiron for each second.
So you're actually getting different Chyrons from different channels, from the different live people that are writing them.
Yeah. So we're scanning like the 4 channels in simultaneously.
Okay.
And then we're basically getting that text out, cleaning it up a bit. And now we can tweet and Mastodon the raw stuff and put it in our API. Then we can sort of take, once the hour rolls up, and sort of say, now take for each minute the best Chyrons, and now summarize that into an hourly summary with
but the summaries are still attached to the exact clip. They're clip specific. You're not trying to join together the coverage from the different channels. That's what I was.
Yeah. They can be cited back to original clips. Sometimes it could be 2 clips if the same channel is talking about, like, there was like this key bridge that just crashed or fell down in Baltimore
because the pylon wasn't padded. Yes. And which short story. Reader's Digest condensed version on that, because I was able to talk to Matteo Bori, who we do space shows with, who is actually the inventor of the autonomous system that drives most of the barges now. It's open source. It's another one of those, if I'm so smart, why ain't I rich moments for Matteo. But anyway, he said, they put padding on the pylons, like the Golden Gate Bridge and the Bay Bridge here in San Francisco has these huge things around the pylons for padding, but they have to build that when they build the bridge. So if you've got some suspension bridge or other bridge in your town and you don't have any pylon padding, but it also has to do with like how often boats are coming through there. And it was a bit of a freak accident, the way that there were for all the power to be gone and for the backup systems to have failed for that to have happened. But that was really interesting to watch. The thing happened, and then you could see the video of it happening. And then there was kind of a drone shot afterwards, that was sort of, okay, this is a little different and interesting. There's a drone shot, and then what are you going to do, right? So they're spinning it, and I think there is some truth to it, so I'm not going to lie. But as if it's like another sign of deregulation or something, that, all the bridges aren't made to have their pylon padding. And I think it's because that we got the planes falling apart and all that kind of stuff that people are pointing to that. And there could be some truth to it, but I really I was happy to be able to go to the archive and look at the footage on, I think, maybe three different channels, and just be like, "Yep, that's what happened." Everybody says so, and it was a really case in point of, and the whole thing took 5 minutes. Right. So it does take 5 minutes. it's gonna take 5 minutes most of the time. And it's not something, arguably, I mean, the bridge fell. It was just a thing that happened. It wasn't like the subtle news where you're trying to get to the bottom of something in case you need to do something, time's of the essence, because you got to figure out the thing you need to do. Because I'm certainly not going to be able to any help in this situation. But I was worried about it. I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And 5 minutes later, I knew, and one email and one text with Mateo, and I knew far too much about it, as you could say. So it's very useful as when you're trying to get to the bottom of things quickly, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. If the news people are talking about it, it will show up, and it will be there by somebody. If it's real, it will usually be there by somebody. So great. So Desi, no problem. The lovely Haley, who helps us in our chat, is going to be taking off, and I'm actually just wrapping up. And Haley says it was absolutely fascinating and educational, and thank you, Tracey. And we're going to wrap this up, and it's just really been great having you on and learning all about the TV News Archive. Desi, do you have anything to leave us with as we say goodbye?
Goodbye. Thank you for tuning into the Mindplex podcast. Stay curious and keep learning.
All right. Well said. All right, everybody. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week, where we will have Cloris from Cogito, the CEO of Cogito, and we'll get to learn about all the updates that has been going on with them, which are a lot of exciting things. So thank you for coming, and sweet dreams. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Lisa and Desi.